Alright, so now that we're at a non-public, I'll take a motion to seal the minutes of the public.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, I'm an aye. Jen?
Aye.
Aye.
Russ? John?
Aye.
Alright. The board and the newsletter are still gonna continue to negotiate. I'm gonna make an unfavorable motion that we reissue the February check to the newsletter.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
To provide funds for an upcoming
I don't think
edition.
that-
Yes.
I don't think that's appropriate at this time.
That's the 1472.
Yes. So if nobody heard it, John said he didn't think that was appropriate this time. I'm gonna take a roll call vote. I'm an aye. Jen?
This would be in the understanding that this would cover the near-term costs while we attempt to work out an agreement. And that because the publishing deadline is coming up, we would want to release the funds now so that they could do an addition while we continue to negotiate. Is that what you're?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't believe that we're discussing, I don't think the newsletter's financial frugality is in any question.
Sure, sure.
So, in order, a check was issued, it didn't happen, so they can move forward and possibly get an April issue out.
I'll support a one-time payment.
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
John?
No,
I'm sorry, John, what was that?
no,
Okay, so motion carries 4-1. Karen, can you just ask Joyce if she has time to sign the check, and if so, if somebody can call the newsletter folks and ask them to pick it up?
yes,
Thank you.
So I promised the audience a chance to speak. Please don't talk over anybody, one at a time. I'll acknowledge you, and if there's more hands that go up, I'll try to take notes.
Please state your name and address because Tamara's still learning everybody.
And all we have to do is street, you don't have to do the house number. Jim?
Okay. Jim Johnson, Shannon Way. We voted a warrant article to be funded. We didn't vote for a contract, that got voted down. You're looking at legal action here if you continue this route. Does that bother you guys?
So, we, have legal opinion that we have the option on how we spend that money to the newsletter and when it gets issued. So that's what we're basing our continued negotiation
But
on.
you're basing it on an article that was voted down. No one wanted the contract. You guys got a serious problem if you go along with this, because you can be removed from office for this. You're violating your oath to the citizens. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know, Ms. Jones, you're wrong.
Not
You
according to
violate
legal
your
counsel.
oath, you're violating your oath. The people spoke at the town meeting, end of story.
Municipal regulations is that the only binding warrant article is if you reduce the finding of something down to 0, that binds the select board hands. But legal counsel has explained that any warrant article that passes, it is up to the select board to decide when and how much is used of that
So you're gonna
funding.
go against the people.
I'm just telling you what legal counsel has advised
No,
us.
no, no, no.
I think Jim-
Well, I can tell you right now,
Jim-
this is a constitutional issue.
Jim, I
This has
think-
nothing to do.
Jim, and we've already kind of talked about this before, is if the people elected into the positions they're in right now, if they choose to ignore the people, they do it at their detriment of the next election process.
They're violating their oath to represent the people at a town meeting of which was voted for. Anybody else?
So, thank you, Jim, but.
Hi, Tim Leo, Woodbury Street. The town is,
To address us, not,
the town is still, this was based off of last year's select board to cover until, what is it, March?
So unfortunately, the previous board
I
can't,
understand, but out of, I mean, this, it hasn't been any other contracted service, we have a list of what is covered and what is not for any thing that the town provides. I'm sorry. Tired and my words are not coming out exactly how I want them. Sorry.
Ward, and then,
Ward Burn, Raw Road, East Brentwood. I'm just trying to get a little background here because it's difficult to figure out. Does the town have any contracts for any situations like this with the town with any other vendors?
we have contracts with all vendors or some type of,
Well, I guess I'm getting
Type of
at-
invoice or something like that.
Say that again?
We'll have like an invoice, or it depends on what services it's for, but like lawn mowing, we have a contract with them. Trying to think of some of the other services.
Block 5.
Yeah, so like our internet, there's a contract with them, but like some of the services, no, we don't. So it really depends on what vendor and what service they're providing to us.
Hold on one second. Melissa, did you have something?
I have a question. I'm Melissa Litchfield, Eleanor's Way. My question is just, so with the operating budget, I know we vote on a bottom line number and you can do what you will with it. So I didn't realize warrant articles were the same. So warrant articles fall under that same category, that dollar amount gets lumped in with the operating budget and you have free will?
The
No.
warrant article can only be spent on the warrant for what it was voted for what the purposes. So the monies that were voted on the warrant article for the Brentwood newsletter, quote unquote Brentwood newsletter, that money can only be spent and expended on the Brentwood newsletter. Now, it's up to us how we disperse those funding according to legal. We could, do we release it all at once, or do we release this portion here and there? That's kind of up to the board at that point.
It can't be transferred for another use.
Yep, can I follow up? Just
Sure.
so I'm sorry, just so I understand. So I heard what you said, it can't be for another use, but you're just determining how it's dispersed throughout the year, but it has to be dispersed to the use throughout the year, it does not have to be used.
According to council, it doesn't have to be used because it's just like some of our other warrant articles, like Wayne doesn't spend his whole $350,000 on road repairs every year. We allot that amount, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every penny gets spent. What's not spent is returned to the general fund.
So that being said, just having sat at that meeting and seeing how the majority voted, I'm really disappointed with this decision, but that being said, I do appreciate the fact that you are gonna move forward with 1 month, so thank you for that.
Is Rebecca Dunham, Block Drive, is there a particular point of contention on the board that they do not want to disperse the entire amount? What is the rationale for not dispersing the amount that was voted at town meeting?
I think we're in the process of still working out a memo of understanding at this point. So this allows them to kind of hopefully move forward with the April, and for us to hopefully, I'm hoping over the next week, get this thing resolved, where we can iron out the issues.
So
that we
that's what
have.
I'm asking, what is the issue that is holding back from dispersing the entire amount?
Most of that was discussed in non-public session, so that's,
Oh, I understand that.
I think she could get a general answer.
If I could get a general sense, is it, you think the newsletter hasn't produced issues over the year or spent the money unwisely or?
I think I just said 5 minutes ago, their financial frugality has not been a question. My personal reason why I'm not voting to expend the full amount of money is I would like to see some type of agreement between the newsletter and the town. I think that's what the majority of the people that spoke in May wanted to see. I also want to try to bring the town together because we are so divided that If we just expend the money, half the town's gonna be upset. If we don't expend the money, the other half of the town is upset. So, right now, us 5 people are in the worst seats in the house.
You know, and we got two, you know, you got 2 spitting vipers, right? Who's getting hit with the venom?
May I read just something that was printed in the newsletter back in 1977 and 78? I don't know if it pertains to your issues, but you talked about bringing the community together. I would like to read those.
Can you do it in 3 minutes or less?
I can. Okay, so this was in April 1977, when Linda started the newsletter. The paragraph reads, it is hard and one might suggest foolish to discuss whether, this is about a repair, okay. Yet many of the issues now facing Brentwood, as they were discussed at the last public meeting, do not necessarily pose an immediate crisis. They are long-range issues which have a future impact on the community. These issues are properly subject to debate. Decent people may well have legitimately different opinions on how such issues should be resolved. In order to have such a debate, greater communication among members of the community on these issues would be very helpful. The newsletter and public meetings are but a small step in that. The other, Linda wrote in 1978, we on the Brentwood Newsletter Committee are concerned that our fellow residents are not writing us with their opinions, views, questions, observations about the life and affairs of Brentwood. This publication is meant to be a continuous instrument of communication, and every single resident has the right and privilege to be a contributor. I think this would be a way for us to talk about issues and resolve issues and have debate and communication. And I think that's important. To cut it off would be a sad result.
Thank you. And this was a paperclip before I started the meeting. And I'm not a fidget person, so that's how frustrated I am
I
about
can imagine.
trying to get this handled. Besides Jim and Kim, is there anybody else that wants to speak? Mr. Dunham?
Bill Dunham, Block Drive. Put the legal issue and the money issue and all the other issues you've talked about aside. Now let's get back to something that you mentioned, which is the divided community. One of the reasons this community is divided is because we now have 2 selectmen who decided to bypass the Brentwood newsletter and go directly to Seacoast Online so that they could talk about the woes of Brentwood to all the other towns around the area in which they live. One of these individuals, who's currently sitting here today, said that quote-unquote white people need to do a better job. The other one said that he has identified some racists within the community, and here we are 1 year later, and he still has yet to identify who those people are, what they said or what they did that helped him draw that conclusion. Now, it seems to me that one of the things that these 2 individuals ought to be doing is, rather than shunning the Brentwood newsletter and talking about defunding the newsletter or controlling the newsletter, they ought to be embracing the newsletter. One of them can do that so that that individual could explain to me how I can do a better job because I've got white skin and apparently I haven't done what I'm supposed to be doing. And the other one perhaps could tell us exactly what his research has determined over the past year. Who are the individuals that he has identified? What did they say? What did they do? And he could write a great article so that perhaps we could have an intervention. Maybe we could sit down with all the racists that have been identified by the selectmen and we could all iron this out. But it would be a great opportunity for the Brentwood newsletter to take advantage and for them to take advantage of putting something together and bringing the community back together. Now, if this one individual
So can I just
If the one-
get you back, we're supposed to be talking about the newsletter, not,
If the
not
one
about,
individual, if he does not wish to tell us who the racists are that he's identified, then perhaps he could use the Brentwood newsletter to apologize to us, and that would go a long way to bringing this community back together. That's where I started this conversation. Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, real quick, can I get the citations that were just cited? Was it Selectmen policy or RSA laws?
On which one, Jim?
I think Ms. Jones stated in her comment.
That was legal counsel opinion, I think.
About the expenditures?
She's just referencing RSA 32.
So Jen was talking about a legal counsel opinion, right?
Yes.
All right, but there
That
were
was Karen's
certain
moved by
references
Karen.
made, if I could just get them written down for me.
Can you, I just didn't know which, huh? So Karen said municipal law was part of what she cited, the other part was the legal counsel opinion.
Okay, well, this is a constitutional issue.
Lois, 1 second, Kim was before you and then you.
Mr. Dunham, by asking anyone to.
Nope, nope.
It's gotta be up here.
Okay,
And nothing about what Mr. Dunham said. This,
what was asked back in May was that the newsletter have an editorial conduct contract with the town.
I addressed May already, Kim,
I
we're just going around in circles.
Editorial conduct has yet to be followed through with.
Lois?
Lois Dion, Crawley Falls Road. Andy, what you brought up is the crux of the entire matter tonight. That newsletter, Brentwood newsletter has been.
Which part, Lois?
The very first part, about dividing the town in half. Okay, they're dividing the town in half. Well, the Brentwood newsletter has been for 45 plus years, down, enter part of our town. We are probably the only one in the state that has such a great newspaper. And what you are doing here tonight is, if you continue this, it's going to destroy, that's going to divide the town, all right. It's also going to shut down what is the most important thing that we've had. It's Brentwood's claim to fame. And it's ruining our history, and they're making us, ruining everything that's of good, the free press, and all those other things. By doing what you're doing, you're going to not divide the town, you're going to destroy the town, because Brentwood newsletter was the heart that gave us all what is all things Brentwood, that we communicated together. Without it, there will be no joining together, because that's what it needs. We need that newsletter.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ward?
Ward, Burn, 55 Row Road. I'd like to see, I'm requesting the board remove John Morgan from any decision-making on this matter. As of last week, he opened that he is biased against the newsletter, and that tonight, although the rest of the board voted to fund the newsletter, he struck out as a no. And I think it's quite clear from his actions and his behavior that he can't make a sound judgment on this, and he should be stepped aside from any decision-making on this. And I request the board to remove him from any decision-making on this.
So I don't think we can do that. I don't think he has a financial gain or loss, so there's no reason for him to recuse himself. He's 1/5 of the voting party.
I agree, I don't see a conflict of interest. I mean, I see he potentially has a bias, but we all have biases and opinions. I have to respect it, otherwise I would say I would be bigoted for not understanding somebody else's opinion. So he's still allowed to have a voice.
But it's more than an opinion, though. It's a cancer that's eating this room apart. It is. And it continues to, and I can see 4 people up there tonight communicating and trying to work with the newsletter, and I know one is not willing to, and it's wrong.
And he's admitted that he has a bias, so at least the public knows where he stands.
But asking the,
Kim, you've already talked twice, I need to move on. Michelle, you had a statement or question?
Michelle Suit at Middle Road. Yes, there is definitely division in this town, and I think it has been
Kim?
fueled by certain people, which is sad, and a detriment to us. It has been fueled by people going outside of this town and airing the laundry, if you will, if I want to just use that term. And the saddest part about that is those people never came to us. They never came to the Brentwood newsletter to discuss anything. And in fact, most of this fuel, they haven't come to us. They have used the opportunity to exploit the situation and damage our town. And I think that's sad. And it's definitely sad for people who are at that table supposing to represent this town.
Right, I'd like to wrap this up. So, anybody on the board have anything that they wish to add to this discussion?
I just want to say one thing in terms of, in defense of John Morgan.
That wasn't up to.
No, just to say, I think last week he was pretty clear, Ward. I think he had an interchange with you, where he said, I want to see a good faith effort to come to some kind of an agreement. And I think that's what all of us were saying in the non-public session. So we all have our personal feelings, but I think he was pretty clear that he is part of the team trying to do a good faith effort to move forward. I think we're all hoping to move forward, hopefully sooner rather than later, so we can all stop talking about this and move ahead and get back to other things.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn, do I have a second? A second. A second, I'll take a roll call vote. I'm an aye. Jen?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Don't we have to go back to non-public?
Oh, yeah, we need to go back to non-public, thank you. So,
Good call.
When will we check this?
so, we need to go back to non-public. Michelle, I'll answer your question in a second.
This is for legal.
For legal matters,
The motion to go into non-public for 91A.
we will not be coming back to public session. Second. I'm an aye. Jen?
Aye.
Bob? Aye.
John? All right, we're just turning off the microphones and clearing out the room.